bike at a cost of $75,000. He was hurting me. I was hurting for him. And, my daughter was crying, and he hugged me, and we were both crying. And the rest I'll reveal if Attorney Brennan wants to call me. I'm on the list, so we'll see if he wants to call me.
Was there an island? Was there an island?
Well, I wasn't sitting on a stool, dangling my legs and pouring a cup of coffee in my lap.
And did Peg lean over and say he looks like he was hit by a car?
That's correct.
She did say that. Okay. Play this one.
Yo, let me get your autograph.
What's up, man?
Mighty Mother not so Rico in the house. Your boy Johnny Picho here. I know about you, boy. What up? What up, Johnny?
All right, hold on.
What's up? Can I get your autograph?
I'll come back later.
You'll come back later?
I'll come back later.
Oh my God!
All right.
It's your boy Johnny Picho.
Let them do their job. Let them do
Can I
their
get your
job.
autograph?
Later on. Let them do their job.
It's your boy Johnny Picho.
I gotta work.
Your boy Johnny.
All right. Yes. All right, folks, here we go. Now, I am not on the court list. So, but we're going to be live in 3 minutes. Yep. What a day. My goodness. Bombing out. I thought that, maybe I'm wrong. I thought the whole purpose of the defense is that you're supposed to help your case. I thought you're supposed to help your case. There we go. This voice of reason. Yes. Wasn't he great? Oh, okay. Do your thing, voice of reason. Folks, also on YouTube, thank you very much, Donald. You can also now be a subscriber on YouTube as YouTube continues to grow. I am showing my support for the ICE officials that have been coming under attack of late, but we're going to start off with Karen retrial. It is not going as planned, to say the very least. Roger says we're ready to go at 106. Wow. How about, and I'm going to talk about it. And I'll just, folks, just bear with me. Let me just check all. There they are. Hello, everyone on X, as we have hit. By the way, if you log on to DePietro.com, and also just so we're clear, so I'm not on the media list for today. So otherwise, I would, be there, and then we'll broadcast from there. But we will be there. Folks, I can't complain. I mean, between jury selection and then being up there, 8 weeks, all the hearings, 7-8 weeks of my life. So, but we're live on X. We are live. We also are obviously on AM 1380 and 99.9 FM. And we are also live. Good afternoon to everybody on our Facebook page, which continues to grow. Remember, everybody on Facebook, you can share that you're watching. So, yes, I am, as they call it, the courtroom. Good afternoon, Tammy, courtroom insider. And we are live with, I'll give you the latest on the Karen retrial. This is not going the way that they thought it was going to go, to say the very least. There's Tammy, yes. Hi there, Donna. And again, we're going to be live in 1 minute, folks. 1 minute. So whether you're on YouTube, which our YouTube audience continues to grow, now 63,000 followers on YouTube. Follow our YouTube page, and we're going to begin right now. Or obviously on Facebook, and then TikTok, we're getting close to 110,000 followers. So what a glorious Monday it is. Yes, it is, as the defense is grasping, to say the very least. Well, folks, good afternoon. This is, yes, it's the chosen one. Right now, this is the lunchtime break. Now, just to be clear, normally I would be right outside the courthouse, but they rotate, and they have to let in an element of fairness, of whatever reason, they want to let some different people in who haven't been in. Now, keep in mind, on the one hand, I know many of you like when I'm inside because then you get the honest depiction of what's happening. However, as I am described on both Fox Nation and Court TV, the Courtroom Insider, I will give you the latest. And let's just say this. It has not been a good morning for the Karen Read defense. Actually, the opposite. I'm wondering if someone needs to explain to them. Normally, when you're putting on your case, you want to improve your case, not strengthen the case of Hank Brennan. And that's basically exactly what's happening. So, folks, this portion of the program, right now, we are live on X, and the X audience continues to expand. And we are dealing, there are people, listen, I'll be the first one, right? We're on Fox. I'm quoted on Fox News Channel. We're streaming live on Fox Nation. We're on Court TV. We're on Court TV this morning. We're on every night. I'm inside the courtroom. I get that some people don't have that, get jealous. Folks, it's all part of it. It's all part of it. The platforms continue to expand. And you saw this weekend, and that's why I played the clip of our friend at Crossroads, that that what you saw is, that's street cred. That is, people only get to know you by being out there, right? I don't hide somewhere and just put stuff out. Also, I've testified in court. Folks, I would never take the fifth the way some little rats do. So the fact of the matter is Hank Brennan has put together, and it's a strong narrative, and I'm going to tell you about that. But I want to remind you, I saw them yesterday. Folks, it's going to be a great weather week. PR Landscape Materials and Garden Center, everything you need, and it looks fantastic. Annuals, perennials, trees and shrubs, hanging pots, 10-inch, 12-inch moss baskets, hanging impatiens, pansy, marigold bags, large selection, beautiful patio pots, vegetable plants and herbs. They have it all. They're a full-scale nursery. It's PR Landscape Materials and Garden Center, and they're open 7 days a week. Now, for links to all of our social media, check out depetro.com. It has our link to Facebook, has our link to X, has our link to YouTube. Plus, I will have the video up. We were at there was a shooting last night right on Branch Avenue. We'll have the video up for that. I've been told the subscribers know that the individual non-life threatening and not cooperating with police. So, but brought to you by the Coesit Inn, 226 Coesit Avenue, West Warwick. I'm going to be at the Coesit Inn very soon. Folks, stop in 7 days a week, always guaranteed a good meal. Plus, they have the market at Coesit, the Coesit Inn, 226 Coesit Avenue, West Warwick. And remember, perfect spot if you're having a large party, reunion, whatever it may be, the Coesit Inn. Now, we're going to talk to our friend Justin Katz, managing editor, anchorrising.com, at the bottom of half of the hour. This is week 7, day 25 with the Karen Read retrial. And this morning, let's talk about the witnesses. So it's the defense's turn for the case. What you have to be careful of is they are actually strengthening the case of Hank Brennan, the prosecution. Hank Brennan, and I meant to tell this to Julie Grant, but we went short on time. Hank Brennan has a rapport with the jury, and I'll tell you what I mean. They've heard from him. He's reasonable. He makes solid points. He has the respect of the judge. He has the respect, Hank Brennan, of the witnesses. When Hank Brennan gets up, I want you to think when you go to the airport. Go to the airport to pick someone up, and you see the passengers coming off, and you see someone, they're looking, and what happens? The person, they light up when they see their ride or they see the family member, right? I mean, you used to be able to go down to the gate. Now we all have to wait at baggage claim. But my point is, they look, and then with all the sea of people, they identify. Or even if if you've ever had a child that performs on stage and then, it's a show, whatever, and they're going to sing, and that you can see the child looking around. It doesn't have to be your child, but a child. And then they see the parents, right, or the grandparents, whoever. That's what it's like with Hank Brennan. When he gets up, he's familiar with the jury. He's a familiar, steady presence with the jury. Hank Brennan, the special prosecutor, has developed a relationship and rapport with the jury. That's wildly important and valuable in a case like this. Now, I have talked about, and other people have said, maybe nothing against Bob Alessi, but I'm telling you, the jury doesn't exactly get excited when he gets up and says, Your Honor, let's talk about the existence of dogs. Now, in the 3rd century, and this lady, Marie Russell, I'm actually going to put it to the side. Wait till Hank Brennan gets up. I was in court when she came in for the special hearing, the voir dire, and this lady didn't even want to examine the dog. But let's put that off to the side in a moment. This morning, the defense had a friend of Michael Proctor who clearly didn't want to be there, who was on that text chain. And a couple things about it. I think it bombed. I think it failed. Number one, last trial, I was in court when Proctor read those texts. And there was a reaction. It was pretty powerful. You don't hear some of that language in court. I didn't really start to hear that language. We know what word we're talking about until, the early days of Curb Your Enthusiasm. Larry David would look for reasons to put that word in the script. So it definitely caught you off guard. However, I think it fell flat. It didn't have the same impact. It didn't have the same impact of last year when Alan Jackson was grilling Proctor about use of the word, about Karen's physical condition, of which I just think Hank Brennan reading a bunch of messages, I think it watered it down. And you could tell the guy didn't want to be there. And he didn't, what are we talking about? And Hank Brennan, that was so clever and powerful when he worked in, Proctor was fired for the use of that language. Do you understand that? There were a couple other things, but he wasn't fired because of something nefarious with the investigation into Karen Reed. Proctor was fired, essentially. Maura Healey, the governor, said, we're firing this guy because he used the C word, and I don't want to deal with it. So I agree with Julie Grant and others. I think Proctor will eventually get his job back. But you have to ask yourself, did that help their case? Or did it weaken the case? Did it strengthen or weaken? I'll even call it neutral. I'll call it a tie, and a tie is good for Hank Brennan. Hank Brennan handled that very tricky, but in a very delicate manner, and put it out there. Yeah, he was. He did say that. Your friend said that on a text chain with 37,000 texts, and he was fired for it. This business of people, well, the jury's wondering where Proctor, the jury's told to evaluate the evidence they have. Not, we'd like you to evaluate evidence that you don't have. But I want to come to this Boston police officer. Folks, but this portion of the program brought to you by Propane Plus. Remember, for all your propane needs in Rhode Island, call them at 401-885-4209. In Massachusetts, 508-252-3359. Heating and cooling. Do you use propane? Call Propane Plus today, 401-885-4209, 508-252-3359. For Propane Plus, they're always online at propaneplus.com. I do have communication with ICE. I know Tom Holman, as I've talked about. I've interviewed Tom Holman 10 times. One of my children saw Tom Holman recently, and Tom Holman said to one of my children, make sure you say hi to your dad. So why? Yes, I'm showing allegiance. This is ridiculous. The position of people are starting to protest and interfere. I'm not going to go on long about it, but that they're starting to try to interfere when ICE is trying to do their job. Listen, stay out of it. That's supposed to be in court. You don't try to battle out on the streets. And the individuals with ICE that I've met, led by the leader, the Border Czar, Tom Holman, Todd Lyons is a phenomenal individual. Todd Lyons, who used to run the Boston office, now in charge of all of ICE, he is who you want in a job like that. This has to end. There's a school right now in Massachusetts. The kids all walked out, and they're chanting the kid that was picked up by. Listen, you can be 18 years old. What part? You're not supposed to be here. ICE grabbed a guy who's wanted for murder in Brazil. Where was he? Woonsocket. Like, enough already. So I want to show allegiance. We're going to do more on that. But I do want to talk about what happened this morning in the Karen Reed trial, because it's very significant what happened with the witness they had, the young woman. But folks, this portion of the program is brought to you by Kids Club on the Pike. Now remember, there's summer camp. Call today, reserve the spot for your child or grandchild. Kids Club on the Pike, 401-443-5336. 401-443-5336. They're right off of 295. They're right on the Cranston-Johnston line, and they run a great summer camp. Enroll, save a spot for your child or grandchild. Kids Club on the Pike, 401-443-5336. So this morning, the defense called a witness, and she is a Boston police officer. And she was working in Canton. And as a result of the defense calling her, what they have done, Kelly Dever, they have, number one, affected in a negative way her life and career. And this is a pattern that anyone that doesn't comply, they try to ruin. But I believe, if you saw it, it backfired. And I think police and people need to stand up for someone. What was the point? But you see the pattern. Anyone that doesn't comply with the narrative that they want, they attack. That's why they attacked Proctor. That's why they attacked Jen McCabe. That's why now they're attacking Kerry Roberts. They're attacking anyone that doesn't go along with their narrative. That's why those idiots were trying to give me a hard time on Friday, because I get access to the courtroom. I get to go on national TV and talk about how, as of right now, Hank Brennan has made the case for murder too. And what I meant to say to Julie Grant this morning before I talk about this witness, and what happened was, what's so different this time around compared to last trial was Hank Brennan has really drilled down. I should have done this. I got to talk to Julie later. That Karen Reed first went forward and then backed up. Folks, that was intentional. That's murder too. This isn't someone driving along and then someone runs in front of the car and they strike a pedestrian. This isn't even a drunk driver. Now, the whole element that the Commonwealth and the prosecution has proved is the element of she pulled forward to give herself more runway and gunned it backwards. What's that the equivalent of? If you've ever done, there's pole vaulting, but then there's, where when you're going to do that, I'll give a better example. For those that can dunk a basketball, I can't dunk a basketball, but those that can, when you watch them, they have to run and then build up to be able to dunk it. Not as many players could just stand underneath and do it. Some could, don't get me wrong, the really tall individuals, but most need that running start. Kind of like, do you remember Evel Knievel? He wouldn't just start when he was going to jump and then try to do it from there. He would have to back up and then build up his momentum, right, at the ramp to then jump the different things. With Karen Reed, why that's so significant that the Commonwealth has proven with the data is she actually, you want to talk about a nutcase, she actually moved the Lexus forward to get more of a distance. It's not like he was behind her and she started backing up. That happened with a week ago. Some woman didn't realize the husband and the dog were behind her in the driveway, and she just started backing up and hit them. But with Karen Reed, what they have proven is she actually moved the Lexus forward, then gunned it going backwards, almost to kind of give him the false impression of pulling away. That's why it's murder too. That's why it's intentional. And that was crystal clear with the jury. But this morning, they decided to bring in Kelly Dever. And Kelly, when she was first doing an interview, she mistakenly said, oh, wait a minute. I thought I had seen them that day in the Sally Port, but I left that day at 3:45, so I was wrong. And then she said, I told you something that wasn't right. I was wrong on that. And it actually, that was not, I didn't witness that. So it's not, she didn't lie. Listen, people make all mistakes all the time on things that they remember or don't exactly remember. But where she was devastating is you got to realize in the courthouse, the court sheriffs run the show. The court sheriffs and the police deal with the jurors. The defense attorneys always come off as a little shaky, a little sketchy, a little slimy, if you will. It's just almost the nature of it, right? Fast talking, the defense attorney, the way they try to turn things. So the juries are always, my experience has been, they're a little leery of them to begin with. When Kelly Dever, that was a powerful statement when she let out that the Karen Reed defense were trying to pressure her to lie. And if not, they were going to try to get a charge with perjury. She stood her ground. She stood there. She's now a Boston police officer. I'm telling you right now that did not go over well with the jury. It bombed, actually. It shows the defense of being slippery. It shows the Karen Reed defense. And Karen smirking away with that weird smirk. She does have like that Joker where she almost like one part of the face goes up, smirking. See, that's the Karen Reed mind. I'm still waiting for local Boston media, the Boston Globe, to do a series of news stories or packages on what you're really witnessing is mental health and someone who is clearly not right in the head. There's clearly, borderline personality with her. Karen Reed last spring, she enjoyed watching Jen McCabe and others, John's friends. She took pleasure in watching John O'Keefe's friends being beat up on the stand, even though she knew the truth. There's something, she's whacked. She's twisted. That's why John wanted to get away from her. That's why John, the whole thing had gotten tired of. He was tired of all the drinking. That Friday night, all those people went out and the main focus was just have fun. But not with Karen. Karen's main sole focus was to drink. Just like a true alcoholic, a true drunk. That was her priority. That's why she complained, this is a weak pour. These drinks aren't stiff enough. Who talks that way? An alcoholic talks that way. I'm going to have to do a sidecar. I need to double the shot here. Yeah, that's someone with a drinking problem and mental problems. She has that weird Joker smirk that goes up. It's kind of an odd tick. Her and the father have it. I don't see it with the mother so much. But I'm telling you that was not a smart play by the defense. I get it. Some people are going to try, it's fantastic. They ripped her up. Folks, it's moronic to think that. In the courtroom, police are liked. Police are respected. The police are trying to help the jurors. In the court of law, when they saw the state trooper, go up, they're not seen as these shady individuals. I love that. She was a great witness, Kelly. She deserves a lot of credit. She even said, that was a year and a half before the whole stupid conspiracy was talked about. Hey, Proctor was right. Say what you want about Mike Proctor. She does have a weird Fall River accent. She does. The jury doesn't like Karen Reed. The jury has no reason to like Karen Reed. They have none. Folks, this portion of our program is brought to you by Arch Design Builders. Call them today, 401-207-4124. I know people say, well, it shouldn't matter if you could say that, but the OJ jury, they liked OJ. Doesn't hurt if the jury likes the individual. Folks, Arch Design Builders, if you're thinking of a new kitchen, a new bathroom, basement, deck, special project, Arch Design Builders. Give them a call today. Set up that meeting with Ed and Roxanne. Free meeting, free consultation. Show them the space of what you're thinking about. Inlet Stream, 401-218-9707. We're talking 5-star custom build high-end ARCH, Arch Design and Builders, because they do both. Roxanne will design it and Ed will build it. 401-218-9707. Well, folks, good afternoon now. This woman, Marie Russell, hey, let her say those looked like dog bites. Watch what Hank Brennan is going to do to this lady this afternoon. And I also want to remind people, so first of all, it doesn't look like the defense is going to call Michael Proctor. The prosecution doesn't need Michael Proctor. But on top of that, so far the defense case is strengthening the case of the prosecution. This business of the dog bites, it has no meaning here. No matter, even if this lady says he was attacked by a dog, right now, based on this case where they don't have him in the house, I think if I were on the jury, I would think, okay, so they're saying the dog attacked him when he was laying in the snow. There's nothing about him in the house. There's nothing about him in the house. In this trial, it all happened outside by the flagpole. Now, Hank Brennan will, in a very gingerly way, totally, disable this lady, Marie Russell, who was just some bored lady, hasn't worked in 30 years, flipping through the Boston Globe out on the West Coast. It was like, yeah, that sounds like fun. I wouldn't mind testifying. Free trip to New England, have lunch with some friends, and then they'll fly me back. But she doesn't know. She's not a dog expert. I was there in court when they said, we can get you the dog. Do you want to examine the dog? No, I don't want to examine the dog. Because she's never examined a dog. It's very technical. They know each tooth is numbered just like a dentist. So those are not dog bites. There was no puncture of the skin. It was a scrape from the taillight. Folks, before we talk to Justin Katz, managing editor of AnchorRising.com, I want to remind you about Quality Asphalt Seal Coating. Call them today, 401-283-9815. 401-283-9815 for Quality Asphalt Seal Coating. Corey is amazing. And they could do line striping for your parking lot. They could resurface a tennis court, pickleball court, basketball court. They epoxy garages and patios. They do decorative concrete flooring. They can do it all. It is Quality Asphalt Seal Coating. 401-283-9815 for Quality Asphalt Seal Coating. So the Karen Reed case, this is the lunch break. This morning, the defense, they're still putting on their case. I don't think the defense is going to go that long. So far, the defense of Karen Reed, if you really want to know, it's not going that well. Dr. Welcher was very effective with the jury. As I was saying on Court TV the other night, this is a video trial. This whole case is dominated by video. This is a real 2025 case. You have the ring camera video at Meadows with John O'Keefe lived. You have the dash cam video. You have the Karen clips, right, playing on those huge screens in the courtroom. And I'm telling you right now, Dr. Welcher dressing up as John O'Keefe and doing slow motion roll. He doesn't have to be going 20 miles an hour. The slow motion roll. Folks, in the fall, every Saturday and Sunday, what do we do in America? We watch college football, then pro football. And what do? Do they just say the officials are watching it and it's all in fast speed? No. What do they do? Slow motion, instant replay. And then you'll hear Tony Romo say, oh, there it is. Let's talk to Gene Spellador, whatever his name is. Look at that. Oh, the foot touched. Oh, that is a touchdown. They're going to rule it a touchdown. And the officials are watching it. That's what the jury saw. The slow motion roll. You know what they thought about? The blue paint. They didn't think about the slide that the defense used. And Alan Jackson had to stand there. And he was telling that young woman, who's a Boston police officer, made it very clear she didn't want to be there. He couldn't even respect her and get her name right. And she was bravely telling the world that the defense was trying to pressure her to lie. That's a bad look. That's a real bad look. All right, we're going to come back to the Karen Reed case. It's Monday. I'm following it. I was on Court TV this morning. I'm following the case. I'm also talking to my courtroom sources. They're telling me this is not going well. This is not going well. But, folks, it's time for Politics This Week. Justin Katz, managing editor of anchorrising.com, who joins us on this Monday. Good afternoon, Justin.
Good afternoon, John.
There we are. Justin, let's start off, because I think there's a couple different dynamics to this. But the poll came out last week, and you have Rhode Island Governor Dan McKee at 19% approval. And it's even more damaging when you look inside of even Democrats that don't want him to run. I want to get your thought on what does that poll tell you, but what does it say that he's actually even below Chafee, where Chafee was. When Chafee saw he was at 22%, Chafee decided the June before that he would not seek, a second term. And so that's why it was that summer, the summer of 2013, he made the announcement at the DMV in Cranston because he thought that was a big accomplishment. I don't know, maybe it was, maybe it wasn't. But then as a result of that, Gina Raimondo jumped in and Angel Tavares jumped in, then eventually Clay Pell. What does it tell you that he's at 19%? President Trump, by the way, is at 37%. And what does it tell you that he's still in the race?
Well, on the first question, what it tells us about the status itself tells us is that the political environment right now, nobody's getting what they want in Rhode Island. The progressives aren't getting their far left lurch like they think they're entitled to because they now own the government. The general public of Rhode Island is seeing that things aren't going well, and they don't agree with a lot of the craziness. We hear nationally about the 80-20 issues, things like transgenderism. That's not into the liking of anybody in the general public. So all these things are kind of combining to make, I think, any politician, but particularly Democrats, would start off with a hindrance because of those issues, and then be the fact that he won't go far enough left to please his progressive base, or they feel he's not. He's still a white man after all. They can't change that unless he changes his mind about himself. That stuff is holding him back as well, and I think that's a big problem for us. But I think what it tells us about him running, I think he'll still run. A lot has changed since Chafee, and say what you will about Chafee, he had some integrity to him. I don't see any evidence of that in McKee. And in fairness to McKee, the politics have changed a lot. Right now, we've got mail ballots. If he keeps that union vote and the inside mail ballot stuffers, then he's might have a shot. So I don't see any reason he would pull out. But I find really striking, though, is a lot in the media aren't talking about maybe he should change his positions. It's all about the politics and which constituency, which special interests he can cater to, and what game he's playing. Well, what about just saying, hey, let me serve the public and see if I can get my numbers up instead of trying to go around them?
I think also, Justin, number one, people need to understand when he beat Ashley Kalis in 2022, he won with 56%. Now, granted, to me, they ran up the score with the mail ballots. But if you look at that, he came in at, it was either 56 or even 57, and then he's down to 19. I would also argue, I'm not surprised. He should be at 19. He's not doing anything that would give him a higher popularity. But what I think there should be more discussion on, and it's along the lines of what does he know that they're just not talking about? And I believe you and I have our finger on it, and that is his strategy is to use, public sector unions. The unions promise them whatever they want, but then have them go out and ballot harvest for him. And I am, again, and I keep, I'm consistent on this. I have no reason. I don't understand why the Rhode Island Republican Party at the State House won't look at that and say we have to at least have a discussion on changing the voting. Because, Justin, to me, if our elections, here's what I'm trying to get at. If our elections were on the up and up, he wouldn't be running. You don't run when you're at 19%. If you're below 40%, it's not good. The fact that McKee is still running when he's got a 19%, that tells me that they feel that they know how to game the system with the elections.
I think that's exactly it. And I think it's within a broader context of government is no longer meant to be representative. When you have progressive government, it's meant to just tell you what you should do because they're the experts and they know best, and you should just get in line, and we'll have your business group that we'll talk to and they'll talk to you, but we don't really represent you. And we talked about that a bit last week when we talked about municipalities having lobbyists because they're no longer representing the people, they're representing the government entities. It's the same dynamic here, and I think that's a deeper problem we're seeing is nobody actually expects in the media or in politics, expects the politicians to represent the people. It's just not how it works anymore.
Now, Justin, also, we're just learning that Holly McLaren, she appeared in the McKee commercial saying, "Hey, Ashley, you're not from around here." And then Holly McLaren now, she has in fact pled no contest, tied up. A grand jury has indicted her, the election signature scandal, and now she entered a no contest plea to the charges. They're saying no jail time. I think it's a mistake, and I think there should be movement at the State House where these type of things need to have teeth to really, for instance, I think it would send a strong message if she was, I'm not saying a life sentence, but if she were getting 15 months, 24 months, even 30 months, that would send a strong message about keeping voter integrity. But what's your reaction to her pleading no contest?
Well, I think it wouldn't even have to be that much, just anything.
Yeah.
A suspended sentence, parole, that's not a big deal. 2 months, give her 3 months in prison. Let that just be an experience in your life if you cheat on these things. They don't even want to do that. But, I don't know that legislation to make it tougher would matter because it's all so selective. If this were a Republican, if actually, want to say one of Ashley Kalas's campaign people had done this, it wouldn't be, I have no confidence it would be the same sentence. It would be whatever, a year, big fines, but there's no consequence. And we kind of knew that already. And I think that's part of the detriment of how we do things in Rhode Island. There's no consequence at all, particularly if you're in the right political party.
I think, again, the Republicans on Smith Hill, I think they should be more aggressive and use this as an example to toughen the laws. I think they missed an opportunity. They missed a window. Now, Justin, also, folks, and again, we're speaking of Justin Katz, managing editor at anchorrising.com, our segment Politics this week. Justin, also, list came out. Trump administration listed different parts of the country that are sanctuary districts, and Providence and Central Falls have found themselves on that list. I'm curious your reaction to that, and also the curious to the media reaction to that story.
Well, yeah, the media goes to the cities and say they all have this double talk to them. They're almost like, they're kind of like teenagers or older children who want to be able to get away with things, but when it turns out to be serious, they want to be able to deny it. Oh, we're following the law completely, but we're not going to follow the law completely. They're playing this kind of word game, and I frankly I hope the Trump administration continues on this path and makes there be a consequence. There ought to be a consequence, very similar to the signature scandal. There ought to be a consequence for your political rhetoric when you're saying we are a sanctuary state. We're not going to make our police ICE agents. Well, okay, if the federal government has a different policy, you're going to have to stand on your principle and lose some federal funding or something like that. But I think that's really how it ought to be. And it really strikes me, particularly when we see this attack in Boulder, Colorado, of the illegal immigrant. Now, it's not the classic easy story of illegal immigrant because it's also bound up in the Palestinian Muslim anti-Jew that angle as well. But that was part of it. He was an illegal immigrant. And one of these days, we're going to have an incident like this in Rhode Island where an illegal immigrant, either one of the more classic problems of rape and murder or of an anti-Semitic attack like this, we're going to have that in Rhode Island. And they're going to be saying, oh, well, we're not a sanctuary state, or actually none of the media will call them on it. But I think it's important for the citizens of Rhode Island that the Trump administration make our elected officials accountable for their rhetoric.
Yeah, and I still believe, I think like you, that our media they fall very short of trying to hold them accountable. And I think there should be, more of a discussion, again, at Smith Hill and in the media, of what needs to be done in order to change that dynamic where those two jurisdictions, Central Falls and Providence, would not be considered sanctuary statuses, and then it should be put into play in that way. Now, Justin, here we go. I mean, I can't believe this. It's 2025, and another story that the developer for the Superman building is looking for tax breaks. This goes back, I mean, we've been hearing this now since that building's been vacated since 2012, 2013. Think about that. And what you just get the idea is when McKee had that press conference and they're moving forward and everything else, and then nothing happens. I just, again, like, what is this? It's just a waste. This guy, it's all talk. It still just stays empty. And to me, he's still not willing to do anything unless he's the one that made the mistake and bought that building. So, but what do you think of more talk of demanding tax breaks?
Well, it's like the iron rule of infrastructure. If you can get the government to be one of your backers, they're in, and you can just keep going back to that well. Oh, well, we saw inflation thanks to Democrat policies. Well, we need more taxpayer subsidies, and that's just constantly the constant churn. It's the concept of sunk costs. Our government just does not do well with this. They get this idea that we're already invested, we can't pull back now. We've got to get them over the finish line, and that's really the goal for the specialists. That's why they hire so many expensive lobbyists when they're trying to get those initial grants from the government. They want us taxpayers on the hook. And ultimately, the goal then becomes for the labor unions and other special interests to pile more costs on there so that they can come back to the taxpayer and say, we just need a little more. This is the final piece of the puzzle. This time we mean it. And it never is. And you get your socialized risk and privatized gain, which is, I think, what we're seeing here.
Folks, again, it's time now for Katz's Corner. This is a story that Justin Katz, managing of anchorrising.com, has found. And what do you have for us this week, Justin Katz?
Well, it's right in line with our discussion of accountability in government and government not serving the people. Monique Chartier has a post up on Anchor Rising related to a study she did of the green energy, the net zero policy we have in Rhode Island. And she tried and she looked and she dug and she couldn't find any indication at all that legislators or the administration or anybody in Rhode Island government did any diligence to say, what will this policy do to energy? How long will it take for our energy infrastructure to catch up and be able to supply our needs without undue cost? No, because that, again, is not what they're there for. They're not there to represent us and make sure we have good policy that serves our needs with the energy we need. They're there to implement Democrat talking points and push progressive policies, and that's what we see with net zero. So Monique dug that out on Anchor Rising, and it's definitely worth a look.
Folks, again, check it out. anchorrising.com. He is Justin Katz. Justin, excellent job as always. Thank you for your flexibility. We'll talk to you again.
Thank you.
All right, folks, there we are. And we are back on this Monday. And again, this week within the media pool at the courthouse. And I'm actually fine with it because it grades. I am not chosen for this week. I can't complain. I mean, it's week 7 of the trial. I was in court basically for 6 weeks straight. It's very, very draining. Gives us a chance. Number one, it also gives me a chance to look at the case a little bit from the outside and view it the way everyone else is. And then let's see. I think the defense is actually going to move very, very quickly. Folks, this portion of our program, and I'm going to talk about where the Karen Reed trial stands right now. This portion of the program is brought to you by ServPro of Providence. Now, call them today. Remember, when disaster strikes, it's ServPro of Providence, 401-941-5500, 401-941-5500. They're fast, they're thorough, they're professional, whether it's a fire or flood damage, right? Water or mold, ServPro of Providence. Call them today, 401-941-5500, especially if you own a commercial building and there's something, you have any of that, fire, mold, or water damage. Call ServPro today, 401-941-5500. Well, folks, good afternoon. I want to keep you up to speed and up to date. And by the way, so our radio portion ends at 2:00, and I also want to listen to the trial. But I want you to know, going forward, I am exploring. This may go longer. We may go 1 to 2:30, and then the second half hour we won't be on the radio, but we'll still just be on these platforms. I have a number of different interviews with people involved with the trial that we're most likely going to get into after the trial, not right now. But I'm telling you right now, I believe that inside that courthouse, Hank Brennan, and I can tell that people are not absorbing what's really going on. I can tell because of all the different platforms. TikTok is filled with all of these people that still believe the conspiracy. And they I hate the whole thing. I hate they call the judge Auntie Bev. This is not an easy case. I think she is a good judge, and a lot of people that they're not they're actually ignorant to how things work. That there are people out there, and by the way, some of them may be listening or watching, but there are some people that believe all the police are lying. Think about this. I was trying to talk to someone. I said, if we follow your train of thought, the Canton police are lying, the Boston police are lying, state police obviously are lying, Hank Brennan's a liar, Lally's a liar, the judge is a liar, all the witnesses are liars, the paramedics are liars, the doctors at the hospital are liars. If you believe what they're peddling, then all of the people I just mentioned, Hank Brennan included, Miss McLaughlin, everyone in the courthouse, right? The judge, everybody's on one side of the street, and the other side is victim Karen. I mean, how does that make sense to anyone that she's the only one telling the truth? Isn't it possible what actually happened here? And I think some people and some of you are starting to realize it. Just you don't have to, again, I'm not trying to convince you, but does that make sense to you? Everybody's lying except for her. What is her kind of, why does she have a monopoly on the truth? What do you even know about Karen Reed? These people that are willing to go to the mat defending her, they've never met her. They don't know anything about her. You see those videos. She clearly had a drinking problem. She also clearly has borderline personality. There's something wrong with her mentally. That's why John wanted to get rid of her. Calling him 53 times that day, calling him 25 times just that during the day. She's a 42-year-old woman. Has that ever occurred to some people that maybe she's not right in the head? That maybe she needed severe mental health. She clearly had an alcohol problem, still does probably. She looks terrible. I heard she was in and out of drug rehab. That's why she had all those physical problems. It was because of the drinking and the drug abuse. Like, did it ever occur to people maybe she's not telling the truth? As a matter of fact, all of it, from the day one, as Brian Higgins would say, from the jump, it's been a lie. Karen Reed, and believe me, right now, if the defense turns it on, I'll be objective and say, hey, I think Alessi's doing a great job with Marie Russell. I think Jackson is doing in Yannetti. To me, it's all about whether or not the Commonwealth, Hank Brennan, Lally, whether they can prove the case. That's what it's about for me. But if you really step back, what really happened here is Karen Reed, after the grand jury, after she was indicted for murder 2, she started pouring through the grand jury, which is totally legal, right? She was indicted, Yannetti, they give her, here's the grand jury, here's the evidence, you could see that. She saw Jen McCabe was going to say, I saw the car out in front. She saw Jen McCabe testify to the grand jury. She said, I hit him. And then Karen Reed started to build her defense from that. But it's from the beginning, it was a lie. In the Gretchen Voss, the story with Gretchen Voss, they played some of her clips. She had unbelievable access to Karen Reed. They left her alone with Karen Reed for 4 hours at her house in Mansfield. When Gretchen Voss interviewed Karen Reed in the defense, Alan Jackson, they said, "Oh, we've never met this turtle person, but he's doing great work." Even though now he may have to change his name to Rat Boy if he's gonna. I mean, he's basically, from what I've heard, announcing he will turn state's evidence and testify against Karen Reed. I don't know, but they told Gretchen Voss, we've never talked to him. And then when Gretchen Voss talked to him, he said, "Oh, I've never talked to them." Then we found out they spoke over 90 times. Someone could try to argue, well, there's nothing wrong with them talking. Well, then why didn't they say that? There's nothing. I agree. There would nothing be wrong, but why lie about it? And then you realize, as that Kelly Devers testified, the defense were pressuring her to lie, and she refused. And then they said, if you don't lie for us, we're going to get you charged with perjury. Who are the defense witnesses? This lady, Marie Russell, watch how Hank Brennan is going to, he won't have to be rough, but he's going to tear her apart. I've seen this lady. She doesn't know what she's talking about. She just wanted a free ride. She was bored living out in, believe it or not, in California. Wanted a free ride to be relevant in the East. She doesn't know anything about dogs. She's not a dog bite expert. And then who do they have up next? The plow guy. He doesn't. Hank Brennan doesn't need to be rough. The guy, Lucky, the plow driver, I saw him in court on Friday. He was in the hallway. He was there all day with his sister. I saw Yannetti talking to him in the hallway. He was right across from me, Lucky Lawford, right on the first floor. So he doesn't need to rough him up, but his times are off. His times make no sense. He's also colorblind. He's a harmless enough individual, but that's not going to help anything. And I'll tell you why that's not going to help anything is because it happened. What happened out by the flagpole. I repeat, what happened out by the flagpole. As of right now, if the jury had to decide right now, it's guilty second-degree murder. And why is it? Because they have the evidence that showed that she pulled forward and then backwards. Like many of you, when I first heard this, I first thought, oh, maybe it was an accident then. How come it's not manslaughter? I didn't know everything like that. I didn't know, and I'll also say, I don't think it was presented in court as well as it now has been, that this was murder too. And I think Hank Brennan laid that out, special prosecutor, very effectively, which he will also do in close. And by the way, remember, the longer he's up, the defense is helping him strengthen his case. You don't want to keep him up. He's in a rhythm. The jury knows him. The jury trusts him. The jury likes Hank Brennan. Hank Brennan's delivering. He can tell the witnesses respect him. Hank Brennan right now is king of the court and winning this trial. Every time they let him get up on cross, he's just making his case stronger. But where are they going to go? They're going to bring these ARCA clowns back? I've heard the ARCA guys don't want any part of this case because they don't want to get torn to shreds. They don't want to then perjure themselves and maybe get in legal trouble, that they lied to the court, that they were communicating with the Signal app with Alan Jackson. Why would you do that? My point is, folks, I don't, Karen Reed, we're going to have much more witnesses and a much more robust defense. A friend of Proctor, Lucky Lawford. The Karen Reed defense will be done this week. I think a week from today will be closing arguments. And then a week from tomorrow, I think the jury's going to get the case. And I believe they have her on all three counts. I haven't seen anything to change my mind on that. You know what else I notice about the Karen Reed supporters? Every time you put something that's true, they knock it. And they use derogatory language, and you're delusional, and what trial are you watching? I posted a month ago that when Brennan pointed out to the jurors, notice the spoiler, they call it, the windscreen on the back of the Lexus. He pointed that out. Kevin Lenahan also mentioned that. He does things by design. And I said, when you look at it and the way it maps up, that caught John's right eye. Kerry Roberts and Jen McCabe. So when they got there that morning, John, his right eye was like an egg. Later, when he went to the hospital, because his brain was bleeding and it flows in, then both eyes were puffed out like raccoon. When people say, where was all the blood? He had a severe brain injury. Karen Reed hit him so hard when he was brain dead when he hit the ground. I said to Paul O'Keefe, even if someone called 911, it's very possible that the family would have had to make the decision to take him off life support. That's how hard she hit him. When people say, where was all the blood? What are you talking about? He got hit in the back of his head, bounced. His brain bounced how hard he was hit. The ground was hard as a rock. And she clipped him. Why does she keep talking about clipping? Did I clip him? Did I run over his knee? Did I hit his foot? I love the clip of her. David Yannetti said, yeah, there'd be culpability. And then Karen Reed said, all right, well, give me 3 days. I'll think of something. Nutcase. What a drunk. I don't get the whole appeal, folks, frankly. I don't. And But what I'm telling you right now is in that courthouse, in that courtroom, the jury, the narrative they have is it's outside. She backed up, and his phone never moved again. So this business about dog bites, Proctor, what? No, Proctor, nothing, zero. Hank Brennan is making his case in the defense. I'm not saying it's easy. But I just don't see them gaining any traction. Folks, this portion of the program is brought to you by J. Perry Paving. Call them today. High quality, fair pricing, J. Perry Paving, 401-732-1730, 401-732-1730 for J. Perry Paving. Also, where's Donna? Donna told me that they didn't realize they have a leaky roof. They said, Donna sent me an email saying her husband noticed that they have a leaky roof. And the reason they noticed, one of the reasons is because of all the rain in May, because I talked about if you have a leaky roof. And I said, Donna, call Roof Co. Rhode Island today. Free estimate, 401-868-7149. 401-868-7149 for Roof Co. Rhode Island. Remember, whether it's wind damage or a leaky roof, maybe you have missing lifted or curled shingles, granules in the gutter, damaged chimney flashing, Roof Co. Rhode Island. They'd be happy to give you a free estimate. Call them today, 401-868-7149 for Roof Co. Rhode Island. Now, Jim asked me, who's the lawn guy and tree service I recommend? I'm glad you asked. JD Lawn Care and Tree Service. Call them, 401-441-0154. They'll also give you a property, a great cut. If you're a business owner, call them. JD Lawn Care and Tree Service. Think of me, JD Lawn Care and Tree Service, 401-441-0154. Well, folks, again, good afternoon on this Monday, June 2nd. If you listen to the radio, stay tuned. Then you're going to hear the 2 o'clock news. Everybody else will be out later. Road Patrol Live. Now, we were at the shooting last night, Branch Avenue. From what I understand, 21 to 22-year-old male, non-life-threatening injuries, but not cooperating with police. Now, the police still have to investigate it because someone discharged the firearm. But the Karen Reed trial, where are they? Marie Russell is on the stand. Watch when Hank Brennan gets to cross-examine Marie Russell. The Kelly Devers, the police officer this morning, I give her a lot of credit. She wouldn't cave to the pressure of the defense. They were trying to get her to lie on the stand. She wouldn't lie. Nope, as they say in The Godfather, she kept her honor. All right, I want to thank everybody for tuning in. Again, Road Patrol Live later on the radio. Stay tuned for the 2 o'clock news.